Dawn, January 31st, 1921. Cape Hatteras, North Carolina. A Coast Guard lookout spots an enormous shape in the mist, a five-masted schooner, every sail set, pinned onto the sandbanks of Diamond Shoals. It's a beautiful sight. It's also impossible. No captain in his right mind would have driven that ship in there. When they finally manage to climb aboard, they find something that freezes their blood. The ship is empty. The 11 or 12 men who sailed on her have vanished. And this is the question we still can't answer after more than 100 years. What in God's name happened to the crew of the Carroll A Deering? Because what they found inside that hull didn't fit an ordinary shipwreck. It fit something far more disturbing. Let's take it step by step. Built in 1919 by the G.G. Deering Company in Bath, Maine, she was among the last of the great wooden schooners before iron construction eclipsed them. A vessel almost 78 meters long, a gem. And on her final voyage, she carried coal bound for South America. But before we reach the end, you need to understand what happened aboard in the weeks before. Because that's where it gets strange. The voyage started off wrong. The ship set sail for Brazil, but Captain Merritt fell gravely ill, and the schooner had to turn back and put into the port of Lewis, Delaware, to leave Merritt and his son behind. The company recruited Captain Willis B. Wormel, a retired veteran seaman of 66, to replace him, and Charles B. McClellan was hired as first mate. 2 new men dropped at the last minute onto someone else's ship. And what happened between them changes everything, because they couldn't stand each other. The Carroll A. Deering, with Wormel in command, set sail for Rio de Janeiro, delivered her cargo without incident, and there Wormel gave his crew leave and met up with an old friend, Captain Goodwin. Wormel spoke of his crew with contempt, though he said he trusted the engineer, Herbert Bates. In other words, the captain didn't trust almost any of his men. Hold on to that detail. Now comes the worst of it. On the way back, the ship stopped in Barbados for supplies, and there the tension exploded. First Mate McClellan got drunk in town and complained to Captain Hugh Norton of another ship. He said he couldn't discipline the crew without Wormel interfering, and that he had to do all the navigation himself because of Wormel's poor eyesight. A half-blind captain, a furious drunken second-in-command. Could it get worse? It could. Later, Captain Norton, his first mate, and another captain were in the Continental Cafe and heard McClellan say, "I'll get the captain before we reach Norfolk. I'll do it." A death threat said out loud in front of witnesses. And here comes the gesture that may have cost Wormel his life. McClellan was arrested for drunkenness, but on January 9th, Wormel forgave him, paid his bail, and set sail for Hampton Roads. He got the man out of jail, the man who had sworn to kill him, and they went back to sea together. No one aboard that ship would ever be seen alive again. Now comes the part that raises the hair on your neck, the last sightings. On January 29, 1921, the Deering passed the Cape Lookout lightship and hailed it, reporting that she had lost both anchors and chains in a storm near Cape Fear. The man asked that her owner, the G.G. Deering Company, be notified. Routine, right? But there are 2 things that don't add up. And they're chilling. First, the lightship keeper, Captain Jacobson, would later say the man who hailed them was a tall, thin fellow with reddish hair who spoke with a foreign accent, and who didn't act or speak like an officer, taking him for a Scandinavian. Think about it. The one shouting the message isn't the captain. He isn't an officer. He's an ordinary seaman speaking for the captain, on a ship where that breaks every protocol. Second thing, Jacobson also noticed the crew was milling about the quarterdeck, where they normally weren't allowed to be. The deckhands, loose, occupying the officers' area. As if whoever was supposed to be in charge no longer was. And to top it off, the lightship couldn't relay the message because its radio was broken. No one ashore heard a thing. And this is where the trail turns ghostly, because the very next day, something even stranger happens. The following afternoon, the crew of another vessel crossing the area saw the schooner sailing a course that would take her straight onto Diamond Shoals. Yet they saw no one on deck, and they didn't try to hail her, assuming her crew would see the Cape Hatteras light or the Diamond Shoals lightship and change course to avoid running aground. No one on deck. A huge ship, sails set, driving straight toward the graveyard of sand, and no one at the wheel to prevent it. She didn't change course. She ran aground. And here comes what they found aboard: Brace yourself, because this is the heart of the mystery. It wasn't until February 4th that they could board her, when a rescue party in a tugboat climbed onto the Deering. The ship was so battered she was taking on water. The crew found her completely abandoned and much of the equipment damaged. But what was missing and what wasn't is what turns this into a nightmare. When they boarded the Carroll A Deering, the Coast Guard found a ghost ship without a single crew member in sight. And yet, wherever they'd gone, they had left behind a completely untouched meal of spare ribs and pea soup. There was even freshly made coffee, food served, coffee still warm, as if 11 or 12 men had vanished in the middle of dinner. And the captain's cabin told another story. Most of the ship seemed in order, but Captain Wormel's quarters were ransacked, and his log entries stopped on January 23rd, replaced from that point on by someone else's handwriting. Someone else writing the captain's log. Sound familiar? And then what they'd taken. The logbook and the navigation equipment had disappeared, along with the crew's personal effects and the 2 lifeboats. Lifeboats? Gone. Personal belongings. Packed up. This was not a desperate flight. Someone had time to pack their things before leaving. So pirates? Mutiny? The answer was about to arrive in the most incredible form possible. On April 11th, 1921, a local fisherman said he'd found a message in a bottle floating off Buxton Beach, North Carolina, and handed it over to the authorities at once. The text read, "Deering captured by oil-burning boat, something like a chaser. Taking off everything, handcuffing crew. Crew hiding all over ship, no chance to make escape. Finder please notify headquarters of Deering. Pirates, prisoners in handcuffs, a desperate message thrown into the sea, the perfect story. The entire government threw itself in. The case triggered investigations by the US Navy, the Treasury, the State Department, the Commerce Department, and the Justice Department." And then the note fell apart. The handwriting in the letter was identified as that of the engineer Bates by Captain Wormel's widow, and the bottle was shown to have been made in Brazil. For a while, it seemed to confirm the pirate theory, but it was a lie. In September, it was discovered that the message in the bottle, the only real evidence of what might have happened, had actually been written by the very man who claimed to find it. A Mr. Christopher Columbus Gray forged the note, hoping to discredit the staff at the Cape Hatteras lighthouse and take someone's job. A hoax, a man who invented it all for a position. And with that lie exposed, the only solid clue evaporated. Without the note, the investigations died down and ended with no official explanation. They were closed in 1922 without any official answer ever being given, and the ship itself vanished too. The wreck, or at least part of it, was deemed a hazard to navigation and blown up with dynamite on March 21, 1921, so it wouldn't threaten other ships. So we reach the end with no answer, but not without theories. The unofficial version, the one a Coast Guard captain held from day one, is the least romantic. Faced with a ship trapped on the outer bank of Diamond Shoals, 90-mile-an-hour winds, and waves like mountains, the crew had to decide fast, stay with the ship or try to reach shore in the lifeboats. They took the boats, and the sea swallowed every one of them. But the theory that's taken hold ties together all the dark threads we've been leaving. The most widely accepted explanation is also the most violent. The tension aboard, between the captain and McClellan, or among a discontented crew, boiled over into some kind of mutiny. Then, from the bad weather or the missing anchors, the ship ran aground, and the crew may have tried to escape in the boats, only to be swallowed by the violent waters of the area or dragged out to sea. The red-haired sailor speaking for the captain, the deckhands loose on the forbidden quarterdeck, the stranger's handwriting in the log, the threat in that Barbados cafe. It all points to Wormel never reaching Diamond Shoals alive, but pointing isn't proving. McClellan became the possible instigator of the mutiny, something that could never be proven because none of the crew, McClellan included, ever turned up, and there it stops. To this day, the fate of the Deering remains one of the greatest mysteries in maritime history. 12 men, a dinner served, warm coffee, and the sea, which never gave back a single one to tell what happened that night aboard the Carroll A. Deering.